Thank you for stopping by. I'm Jeffrey Weiss, your political activist, keeping you informed of local and world events. Today we discuss what happens when smart people outsmart themselves. Julian Assange, the same man who released all of Hillary Clinton's emails, was asked, "Don't you think this will help Donald Trump get elected?" His response was, "Donald Trump will not be allowed to win the election," as if he was the decider of such events. That statement was beyond stupid. It was insane. Julian Assange has spent too many years in a small room in the Ecuadorian embassy. He has lost his mind. His only power left is the ability to rationalize. He is the person solely responsible for Donald Trump being elected. His arrogance, combined with ignorance, has doomed our country. Ralph Nader should have stopped after unsafe at any speed. The exact same thing occurred in the 2000 election when Ralph Nader insisted on running, which drew millions of votes from Al Gore and led to the country being led by George Bush, which caused the death of 6,000 Americans in the Middle East and the gap between rich and poor escalating, and the country being despised by the rest of the world for its arrogance in going to war without UN or congressional approval, and the environmental damage being dismissed as hokey science, and the schools teaching that intelligent design is on the same level of science as evolution. Henry Kissinger, a descent into madness, received the Nobel Prize for Peace, which led him to believe it was right to bomb Laos and Cambodia until the people went back to living in caves. Larry Summers, economic guru. There is a broad consensus among liberal economists that Larry Summers was a classic example of scum rising to the top. No man currently in academia or government had made worse errors in timing choices. Every bold prediction he ever made turned out to be the opposite. Almost everything he said to everyone was arrogant, ignorant, condescending, misogynistic, belittling, and obnoxious. Summers' blatantly pro-Wall Street record doomed efforts by regulators and Congress to rein in the industry. Summers blocked pre-crash regulation of Wall Street. He pushed for the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which had for decades forced banks to keep their commercial and investment activities separate. In 2009 and 2010, as Congress was drafting up the Dodd-Frank financial reform bill aimed at preventing another financial collapse, Summers was the most vocal internal opponent of the Volcker Rule, which forbids banks from making risky bets with taxpayer money. Summers was hostile to a proposed addition to the Dodd-Frank law, which would have broken up mega banks into smaller banks. Summers lost Harvard close to $2 billion on bad investments, while he was president at Harvard between 2001 and 2006. Summers invested billions of dollars of the school's money in a risky mix of stock, bonds, hedge funds, and private equity. As a result, when the financial crisis hit, the university lost up to 27%, or $1.8 billion, of its $6 billion in cash assets. The only honorable alternative for Mr. Summers is to take a job within his capabilities. I hear Taco Bell is hiring for the night shift. Tom Brokaw, on the election night of 2004, Brokaw said, "The people who ran the exit polls and all those of us who were their clients recognize that it is deeply flawed. They were really screwed up, and the old models just don't work anymore. I would not go on the air with them again." In fact, the exit polls created for the 2004 election were designed by the most reliable voter survey in history. The 6 news organizations used Warren Mitofsky's, who pioneered the exit poll for CBS in 1967 and is widely credited with assuring the credibility of Mexican elections in 1994. For its nationwide poll, Mitofsky selected a random subsample approximately 6 times larger than those normally used by national polls, driving the margin of error down to approximately plus or minus 1%. The first indication that something was gravely amiss on November the 2nd of 2004 was the inexplicable discrepancies between exit polls and actual vote counts. Polls in 30 states weren't just off the mark. They deviated to an extent that cannot be accounted for by their margin of error. In all but four states, the discrepancy favored President Bush. Instead of treating the discrepancies as a story meriting investigation, the networks and Brokaw succumbed the offending results and substituted them with correct numbers that had been weighted retroactively to match the official vote count. Rather than find fault with the election results, the mainstream media and Brokaw preferred to dismiss the polls as flawed. On the evening of the vote, reporters at each of the major networks were briefed by pollsters at 7:54 p.m. that Kerry, they were informed, had an insurmountable lead and would win by a rout, at least 309 electoral votes to Bush's 174, with 55 too close to call. In London, Prime Minister Tony Blair went to bed contemplating his relation with President-elect Kerry. As the last polling stations closed on the West Coast, exit polls showed Kerry ahead in 10 of the 11 battleground states, including commanding leads in Ohio and Florida, and winning by 1.5 million votes nationally. The exit polls even showed Kerry breathing down Bush's neck in supposed GOP strongholds of Virginia and North Carolina. Against these numbers, the statistical likelihood of Bush winning was less than 1 in 600 million. Either the exit polls by and large are completely wrong, a news analyst declared, or George Bush loses. But as the evening progressed, official tallies began to show implausible disparities, as much as 9.5%, with the exit polls in 10 of the 11 battleground states. The tally margins departed from what the polls had predicted. In every case, the shift favored Bush. Based on exit polls, CNN had predicted Kerry defeating Bush in Ohio by a margin of 4.2%. Instead, election results showed Bush winning the state by 2.5%. Bush also tallied 7.6% more than the votes had predicted in Pennsylvania and 4.9% more than in Florida. Brokaw could have demanded an investigation, but took the easy way out and gave us George Bush the second time around. Paul Bremer, protege to Henry Kissinger, guilty of malfeasance, misfeasance, and nonfeasance, a man with no experience in nation building, rather a protege of Henry Kissinger, was made provost in Iraq, disbanded the Ba'ath Party, leading to an all-out war between the Sunnis and Shias. This, after being warned by General James Garner what would occur if he took that action. He did not collect the weapons of the police or the military, subsequently killing 1 million Iraqis and over 6,000 American servicemen. Bremer had the temerity to compare himself to George Marshall, the general credited with rebuilding Europe after the Second World War. Bremer is an egomaniac sociopath who cost so many lives, yet still thinks himself as a hero, is beyond rationality. People get such an inflated view of themselves that they do not see past their own agenda or program. Julian Assange gave us Donald Trump, Ralph Nader gave us George Bush. Arrogant, egotistical, narrow-minded people. We don't need people like that in our society. People who think they know better than we do what is right for the country. If they are so dedicated to helping others, then pick up a shovel and join Habitat for Humanity and help Jimmy Carter build houses for the poor. If my articles interest you, please use the link to check out my website and books. Thank you very much.